Welcome to another episode of the Growth Compass. Today on the show, we have Rafe Furst. And right before we get into the magnificent introduction, I'd like to shout out the sponsor Senders. They do cold email deliverability. Hopefully, we'll get into it a little bit later. But if you're ready to do it correctly, you can hit me up at the email address in the show notes. And now, Rafe, I'd like you to give a good little introduction of what's happening over there.
Sure. Well, I guess we could start, with the career stuff if you want, and then I'm an open book. You can ask me anything.
Great.
I started my career, as a researcher in AI back almost 40 years ago now.
What a perspective you must have.
Yeah, but I left that world for entrepreneurship when I saw the first web browser in the early 90s. I was in Silicon Valley at the time. And so that launched my founding career. Co-founded 5 companies since the mid 90s in Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, actually. And I also became a prolific angel investor, venture capitalist, advisor, mentor to founders and whatnot. And I've always been a lifelong poker player and aficionado. And so there was about a 10-year run where I was all in on poker. One of the companies was an online poker company. Yeah, you got the joke. And I played on the professional circuit for about 10 years, won a World Series of Poker bracelet in 2006. And these days I'm coaching founders, helping founders raise funds. And I wrote a book oriented towards family office investors. Well, here it is. It just reached #1 in venture capital on Amazon yesterday, so I'm super happy about that.
Congrats! Absolutely, that's great.
Anyway, that's a little bit of a overview, highlights, and we can go anywhere you want.
Just a little bit, yeah. I have just short of a million questions about all the things that you're doing. The first thing that I'd like to cover is where it seems on your LinkedIn profile, which is where I got this location information. You've spent most of your time out on the west coast of the U.S., kind of southwest. Are there any other places that you've spent time, or mostly it's been out there?
Yeah, so I grew up in LA, in the LA area. I went to college in the Bay Area and stayed there for about 13, 15 years. I went traveling for 3 years in the early 2000s, and culminating with a year on the road in an RV, going around the country with my best friend to sporting events. We call it the ultimate sports adventure. So I've traveled to most of the states in the United States and most of the stadiums.
Nice.
And and I did some international travel during, in that 3-year period as well. So
cool. Any sport in particular, or were you just all sports?
We did all of them. We started the Super Bowl in San Diego in 2003 and ended the Super Bowl in Houston in 2004. And we hit every major event in football, baseball, basketball, hockey.
Cool.
You name it. Ping pong.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into, as everyone listening familiar, as you're familiar, a lot of these conversations are oriented around conversations about how to grow companies, navigate markets, talk to consumers, things like that. The thing I want to touch on before that I would like to bring into more discourse, because it's very meaningful to me in my circle, is mindset, and a lot of perception that I have. Extremely informal poker player is. What can you speak on? What can you speak to about the mindset of playing poker, of navigating a game at such a high level, and potentially from your own experience, how poker impacted your approach to your own life, or how you see pieces of that mindset translate to the entrepreneurs that you coach, or building a company?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Maybe there's a couple of different dimensions of mindset. Cool. Just to discern. You could look at the strategic mindset, or and that's around, okay, well, what is the core activity that you're doing when you're playing poker, or whether you're a founder, or whether you're an investor? Yeah. So all three of those activities from one lens, from the strategic lens, are activities of making good strategic decisions under conditions of an inherent uncertainty, risk, high stakes. So if you think about poker, you're making decisions about betting, raising, folding, how much to bet. You're making assessments of what your opponents hold, what they think you hold. So it's about good decision making in a probabilistic way, knowing that there's so much inherent uncertainty that you're going to get decisions wrong a lot of the times. You're going to have bad outcomes, even if you make good decisions. That's called getting unlucky. If the other way holds too, you can make bad decisions but get lucky. And then you can make good decisions and have good outcomes, or bad decisions and have bad outcomes. And that's what we call the expected outcome or expected value in probability world. And so that as a framework, decision analysis framework, really applies very nicely to investment. If you think about it, you're making bets, how much to bet, when to bet, what to bet on, etc. And there's a lot of inherent uncertainty and risk, and there's always something at stake. And in my experience as a founder, you're making dozens, even hundreds of decisions a day, those same exact characteristics, especially early on in a company's cycle. There's just a lot of unknowns, a lot of possibilities, a lot of risks, a lot of uncertainties. So I look at those as really the very similar activities from that particular lens. That's really just the strategic lens. Okay. But there are other dimensions to mindset too.
So the other dimensions. So you said that. So that was a layer of the strategic. Are there two other layers that you generally pull away from your experience with poker?
Yeah, I think you could consider it like a emotional or psychological layer, a mindset. Oftentimes it's a roller coaster, and as well as I do, you can have days or even hours where you're on the top of the world, and then something comes in, or a deal goes south and you're at the bottom of the trench. And navigating one's own mindset or emotional state, how to process difficult situations and feelings, how to stay in the moment and present is really critical to success. And so from that standpoint, there's a whole host of practices and activities that it's important, from meditation to counseling and mentorship, getting mentorship and advice, to remembering to have a lot of fun and do things
Right.
that are not related to work, not get so monofocused. Sometimes the best performances that, or the best outcomes that I've had as a founder or an investor, are when I'm not really focused on the activity per se. I'm in the hot tub and I'm talking, to a friend, or listening to a podcast, or I'm on a walk or a run, or I'm just out and about, and somebody asks me a question and that leads to a great conversation, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I've been looking for somebody like you for something I'm doing in business. Um, just having an openness is really important, and having perspective about, hey, there's going to be highs and lows, and my job is to just stay in the center as a good decision maker. I'm not able to make good decisions if I'm emotional.
And so we have strategic mindset, emotional or psychological level, and then there's a third one that complements those two.
Sure, if you want, there's I'd say the spiritual dimension or the existential
Nice.
dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, I've noticed that folks who believe that achievement and performance and material success is really what it's all about tend to underperform those who feel that there's something more than just the material world, and that they're grounded from a spiritual dimension. They paradoxically seem to perform best.
That's fascinating because just to tie, I guess, a segment around poker, because I think it's a really interesting part of your life, and I'd love to talk about it more. But I want to get to the other questions. As far as I think it's a common conversation to talk about strategic mindset, emotional mindset, spiritual mindset as it relates to building a business or investing, as you're speaking to. How does the spiritual level play out or is exercised or something in poker? Because it's very material. You guys are bidding on money.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. So here's a way that I think is straightforward to think about it. Everybody gets the same distribution of cards in the long run, right? It's not like you're going to get more pocket aces if we play a million hands, statistically speaking, than I am, right? Or anybody else. And so, what separates the people who are highly skilled players from those who are less skilled, right? What separates from the winners in the game from the losers from the game? Well, you could say that it's their ability to make good strategic decisions. They're better decision makers. They're they have skill. Yeah, and so part of that skill is in the analytical realm and in the strategic realm, but part of that skill is in managing your emotions and psychology, for sure. And then in order to do that properly, and in order to be able to think clearly on the analytical or strategic level, you have to be grounded. You have to be grounded spiritually. You have to know that, I might die on the poker table, metaphorically speaking, 1,000 times, but I'm not the one that's dying. There's somebody else, right?
Interesting. That's a crazy way to tie it all together. I'd like to ask you, but I do want to move on to your perspective on AI and stuff. But I don't know if you would say that aspect of holistic understanding of self awareness, these types of things would lead to people ultimately being more successful on the poker board. So I guess I'll leave that question unanswered, and people can think about it. So before we get into your experience with specific growth as well, you have a deep perspective, understanding on AI, being a researcher for as long as you have been. So if you could just quick give an opinion or your point of view on what the state of things are and how it's developed over the course of the last couple of decades.
Yeah. So up until the large language models, the generative AI that we see, ChatGPT and so on, really AI was a misnomer. We had this kind of joke saying in AI circles early on is that it's called AI until it works, and then they call it engineering because it was very algorithmic and very deterministic. There was not a lot of real thinking, cognition, whatever you want to call it, intelligence. It was fancy pattern matching, high speed pattern matching. But what we're seeing now, I mean, we're all experiencing the creativity and the generativity, the novelty that large language models are generating. Not to mention how much enhanced performance a power user of AI can get. 5-10 times the productivity on problems that they care about in their work. So it's a profound transformation. I think bigger than the internet or the web itself, that we're just at the early stages. There's a lot of parallels in terms of hype cycle or growth cycle from what I saw in the 90s with Web 1.0. I think we're at an inflection point. I mean, for one, I think that the AI revolution is bigger than the web revolution. It's even bigger when you combine Web3, decentralized technologies, with AI. I think there's about to be a radical remaking of life for many, many people on this planet. It's already started. We know that. But what I think is really cool is just in the last couple of months, there's been a next generation of AI beyond what ChatGPT and stuff are doing, beyond what the large language models are doing. These what I call relational AIs. Some people call them agent AIs, but these AIs like Sesame. If you've checked
Okay.
out Sesame,
Not yet.
yep, sesame.com. Look at their demo. Try their demo. Empath AI,
So
Empath,
thank you.
empath. And both of these, they are in kind of beta mode, or they have these demos that are out there that give you a conversation, a relationship that you can come back to, and the AI knows you, remembers things about you, and interacts with you via voice in a very realistic, human like way, to the point where I have had these like holy shit moments where all of a sudden the AI made me laugh out loud.
What?
Or the AI helped me sort through some emotional block that I been having,
Wow.
given me relationship advice, parenting advice. And I'm kind of tripping on this because I'd always thought, like everybody else, it's like, well, the goal is to create AGI, artificial general intelligence, conscious feeling agentic machines, right? And I'm like, no, 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 that's not it at all. I don't care. In fact, it's better if I know that it's absolutely not conscious. It doesn't have its own needs, doesn't have its own feelings. But I have a tool, a technology that partners with me, that's a mirror for me, that helps me kind of like, these, like a Peloton helps me work out and be better. This helps me in my life in so many different ways beyond just kind of the obvious productivity stuff that you can do with ChatGPT. So that's what I call it relational AI. And I think this is the next frontier. And for me, it's very
Interesting.
hopeful. And it's a very different vision than people are talking about. Is it going to be Terminator? Is it going to be, whatever, techno utopia, singularity, upload into the matrix? No, like maybe those are possible. Maybe those are going to happen. Maybe they're going to be inevitable. But in the meantime, I'm going to be working on human centric, humanity centric AI technology that helps me and my friends and my family and my colleagues right here, right now, in whatever aspects of their life they want to get from it.
So when it something like a technology is not only mimicking human tone, human phrasing, like even just baseline, but it's going a step further and it's creating humor and it's creating like emotional intelligence past like what we can. That doesn't freak you out. Like you receive that and you say this is hopeful.
Well, I think it would freak me out if I was doing this with companies that I don't trust, right? I don't trust any company that has a profit motive as its core motive. So I play around with, Sesame. I don't know the founders. I know the founders of Empath, so I have no problem there. And then I'm also exploring creating a new kind of AI company for relational AI that is imbued with the right values from my perspective. It has human well-being at its core, has human values at its core, and that is decentrally owned.
Okay, you just brought something up that was very interesting. I do want to get into your experience with growth and systems and your perspectives on those things. So I guess we'll just have to save that conversation for the next one. Well, thank you for indulging about poker and AI. So the thing that I'm most interested in right now is just like we were just talking about. Where AI has been and where it is now, where it is going. As far as your perspectives of growing these companies, advising different companies, and currently working with companies, I want to start with your own personal. So you have a coaching venture that you do at the moment.
I work with founders and others,
Are
coaching.
you
Yeah,
doing? Do you do any active growth for that? Is it mostly word of mouth stuff like
it's
that?
it's been word of mouth. Yeah, I haven't been doing any real marketing.
Awesome. So then I guess I'd like to pick on up to you whatever company you have worked with that I think has some interesting growth channels. So is there a company that you've worked on recently? I mean, we could even talk about Empath if there's enough information available to you. But I'm just curious about this company that you end up talking about. Are there inbound tactics happening? Are there outbound tactics happening? Are there both? Why and what are they? So does anything come to mind at the moment?
Well, help me find an example that
Let's do it.
that helps you with what you're looking for. So maybe, is there another way that you can kind of tee up what you're trying to, get from me? Like,
Yeah.
because I'm not in the marketing world, I'm not in the growth world.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's take is there so you said you work with founders. Is there a particular founder that has an interesting concept to you or going through an interesting journey right now with their product?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, let's see. Yeah. I mean, look, we can talk about Empath.
Cool.
I'm interested in helping them grow. They're not in growth mode right now, but they certainly will be some point soon.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's additional there's additional I think areas of growth where if you're a founder or a person that has an idea and you're looking for validation, it's not necessarily growing your company, but you're still seeking conversations with people to validate an idea. And I think the channels through which you choose to acquire those conversations are very similar to just growth tactics in general. So if we could take Empath, for example, and you have the perspective, what are those founders, the founder, the team doing to find those conversations?
Yeah. What I think is what I see them doing is that they are seeking like-minded, like-hearted people who share the same vision and values as them, and having open-ended conversations, right? Whether, I mean, they have a number of different, like every company, a number of different conversations going, whether it's, investment conversations, whether it's product feedback, whether it's acquiring new users, et cetera. It comes down to this, I think, core alignment. Hey, are we on the same wavelength about where we see the need for this product, the vision for the company? Is this helping you? Is it helping me? So rather than think tactically about growth or metrics, they're coming at it from maybe a more human conversation, organic perspective. Hey, are we meant to be talking to each other? And then, okay, well, what's your interest, right? Are you an investor? Are you someone who could be an advisor? Are you an early adopter user? Are you someone who can help with marketing? That kind of a thing. So it's really more about initially who, and having a aligned conversation, and then we sort out what it is that we might do together.
Do you know if at the moment they are looking through their network, word of mouth, similar to what your coaching company is, or if they're doing any type of cold outreach or marketing
I don't
to get those
I don't know if they're
conversations?
doing. I certainly know that they're definitely doing the networking thing and the warm outreach. I don't know if they're doing cold outreach yet.
Cool, 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 cool. With your so actually something that's interesting to me that I don't have a depth of knowledge on is the investing side of things. So when you say you're an investor, was that from a perspective? You said you work with family offices. That yourself? Do you work with a fund? How is it that you're involved in investing?
Yeah, I used to be a direct angel investor, directly investing in companies, and I used to run a VC fund where I took investment from limited partners into the fund, whether that's family offices or individuals, and but I don't do that anymore.
Sure,
But what I do is I advise and help founders raise capital from all the different sources. Well, so they can raise money from angel investors, venture capitalists, venture capital funds, right?
sure,
Family offices directly, uh, strategic investors, corporate investors, private equity, sovereign wealth. There's a lot of different sources of capital, and it is a lot of that is done with cold outreach and using machine learning and very targeted, high fidelity, high quality messages that are based on lots of research.
so actually, two questions about your experience in VC. One of them has to do with if you're speaking from the perspective of a VC firm, what does it mean to grow? What are your goals for growth? How do you achieve those things? How do you define it?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So there are two sources of growth. The first is growth of capital under management. So a venture fund, let's say, has a target to raise $100 million to invest in. Typically, venture funds invest in 30 different startups over 3 years, let's say. So 10 startups a year. So a fund, $100 million fund, will invest in 30 companies over the course of 3 years. Oftentimes, they'll invest in more than one round. They'll invest in a seed round and then a Series A, a Series B. But what they're looking for is they're looking to grow their capital, right? The amount of investors and investment they have into their fund.
Mm.
And then they're looking to grow their portfolio companies, the companies that they invest in. So they're looking to find the right investments. They're looking to find the right investors, but they're looking to find the right investments too. And it always starts with zero limited partner investors in the fund and zero companies that they're investing in. And their job is to grow both of those.
Is it a way of thinking about it from the way that you just described it that it's a form of a marketplace?
Yeah. Yeah, you could think of VCs as market makers in a sense. They have two sides. They have both sides, right? Supply and demand, and they are middlemen.
Hmm.
They're not investing their own money.
That is really cool. I've never thought about it that way. So thank you for laying it out that way. So then from that perspective, like you're saying, just as a summary, defining growth, successive growth is amount of investments and amount of money under management, both sides. Uh, the second question about VC from your perspective is overall, how do you feel about the effectiveness of this model? I've read a lot of information about like the place that VC has in the world of supporting ideas coming into the world, growing businesses. There's been a huge rise in private equity to be a vehicle for this as well. Within the VC world, VC like a platform model versus just a VC that invests and then is hands off. So, what is your opinion about the role of VC in society as far as supporting growth of
Yeah. Well, I'll preface this by saying that I have a iconoclastic view. I'm very critical of venture capital as an industry about where it is. I
cool?
say this as someone who's been on the inside, had been on both sides of it as a founder, receiving venture capital, as a venture capital investor, an angel investor, et cetera, an investor, an limited partner investor in funds. So, and why am I critical? I believe that the fact that VCs have so little of their own skin in the game and they depend on other people's money, limited partner, family offices, for instance, the bulk of it, to get assets under management. That's where they make their fees. So venture capital funds work on the hedge fund model of a 2% management fee of assets under management. So over the course of a 10-year venture fund life cycle, if you have 100 million under management, that's $20 million in fees that are riskless. And then if you have a typically performing fund, that $100 million will be turned into $300 or $400 million through the investing activity. And the VC will get 20% carry, which is profit share. So, that's another whatever 80 million or something like that, or 60 million, but they're making a lot of money where they don't have any real risk, any downside risk. And they're incentivized to raise more and more capital, but really it's the rare company that they invest in that can use all of that capital that they want to invest. And so the VCs end up over investing, putting the companies into a growth mode, like a hyper growth unicorn mode, when it might be more prudent to grow slowly and not take on more capital. And when a company takes on more capital, it loses more control. And so all of a sudden, your brilliant, idea and your modestly growing but healthy company, profitable company, is no longer profitable, and you have to grow faster and at all costs, because that's the way your venture capital investors get their big exits, um, and return on investment. That's where they make the bulk of their money. And
Sure.
if they're not able to show, they're in competition with other VC firms for limited partner investors. If they're not able to show that they're top performers in the world of venture capital, they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to raise a second fund. They'll be out of business. So it's a long way of saying there's some really perverse incentives in the world of venture capital. Originally, back when venture capital industry was nascent, what they were doing was very much akin to what angel investors do,
Okay.
which is they invest in at the very earliest stages when the risk is highest,
Hmm.
and they don't take on such an active role in the finance path and growing the company at all costs. They let the operator, they let the founders operate. To me, that's the proper role of venture capital. VCs have become really like just private equity, but playing in a slightly earlier stage than private equity typically plays.
Interesting. So then from that perspective, the idea of a VC platform model which provides services, marketing, business development, whatever, all of those things is actually heading in the wrong direction. You think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. You know about accelerators, right? Y
Hmm.
Combinator, Techstars. I think those are good models, good examples of early stage venture because they put in some initial seed capital. They provide a lot of services and they add a lot of value and they connect you into a network of other service providers and investors, and they make intros and they give you validation and they give you knowledge and learning, and you're in a cohort learning alongside of your peers. I think those are really good, healthy types of venture capital. And uh, yeah. So I think it's just an artifact of the way the financials, the economics have evolved over the last 30 years or so.
Sure. Awesome. Super cool. So, based on everything that you're saying, I'm excited for your answers to these. These are the two final questions of the pod usually. In your own personal life, professional or personal life, what is the biggest challenge that you're facing, and can you frame it as an opportunity?
So I think I heard you say what's a big challenge that I'm facing in my personal or professional life, and can I frame it as an opportunity?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, well, absolutely. These days, but it took me many years and many ups and downs to get to this place. I do view every challenge as an opportunity these days. Yeah, what's the challenge? Right now, I'm challenged and I have the opportunity with this new direction of AI that I envision uh, a different path for AI than most of the world at this point. And I vision a new type of organization, not a normal corporate structure, something more akin to a decentralized organization.
Interesting.
And um, this is a challenge because it's swimming against the tide. But for me, it's a real opportunity. I'm not going to embark on it and compromise on my vision and values
Hmm.
anymore. I'm either going to do it the right way, um, and have success with it that way, or I'm not going to do it.
Interesting.
And I know that there's something there, but it's always a little scary. It's always a
Sure.
little like I'm being stretched into ways of doing things and ways of being and ways of interacting with my colleagues and others that I have not really done before. And so
Hmm.
that's always a scary existential challenge. But it's the greatest opportunity because if we do it, it's if we, go through it, and I know we will, but it changes everything, at least from the perspective of the people who are on board.
Yeah. So tied to that question, because I appreciate that perspective, and it can be small, it can be something that's overarching. But what inspires you?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of things. I mean, my kids inspire me. I have three boys, ages
I love
6,
that.
9, and 12, and they're really the inspiration for a lot because I
Amazing.
see that the world is at a crossroads, and there's some really bad, dark, terrible, scary things already happening in the world, but
Hmm.
exponentially magnified potentially by things like AI, right? And I also know firsthand that there's a flip side to all, every coin. So it's really the possibilities for elevating each and every one of us as a human. It's helping us be better and do better at what we want to do, helping us connect with one another at a deeper level, helping us grow. So, whether technology is your day job or not, whether AI is your thing or not, like for me, that's just a fundamental inspiring force is I'm not just here to serve myself and my goals. I'm here to serve my family, my friends, my community, my colleagues, people I don't know. That's inspiring me.
Amazing. It inspires me too to hear you talk about it. Rafe, thank
Awesome.
you so much for taking the time today to talk about it. There are so many question marks that I have on my notepad, so I hope we get a chance to explore those again. If people want to find
Happy to.
you,
Yeah.
where can they go to do that? Your book as well?
Yeah.
Where are people?
Best place is just my website. I linked the book there and everything else. It's rafefurst.com. That's spelled RAF as in Frank E. First, FURST.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Thank you, and thank everybody that tuned in today. This is an awesome combo.
Thanks,
I'm
Blake. I
excited to keep
really
in
had a
touch.
good time. Yeah.
Thanks. All right. See ya.